There are two aspects of the meeting that we're meant to have on Rosh Hashanah, the meeting that we're meant to have with Hashem. And the one is a reality check. That is, I know it's hard to use human terms, but do you have any idea how much you would like Hashem if you knew Hashem, if you knew his midos, if you encountered Hashem, do you have any idea how much you would like him? How much you would regard him? That is why the Balei Musar were very careful during Elul to learn the Tomer Dvorah that lists the midos of Hashem, and the one layer just builds on the next of how loving and caring and forgiving and nurturing and supportive HaKadosh Baruch Hu is, and the Tomer Dvorah is speaking about how we can emulate those midos of Hashem. To whatever extent a person recognizes the qualities of their neshama, the burden that their neshama carries, by the fact that it is naturally, Hashem designed it so that the neshama would be encumbered by the guf. And by the way, that is a temporary problem. That is not a permanent condition. The neshama was actually designed to be strong enough to dominate the guf, such that the neshama would be the guide, and the guf would play a support role, and there would be no possibility of the guf causing the neshama to veer off track. The neshama got weakened after the Chet of Adam Arishon. The neshama got weakened, and it is that neshama strength that keeps on poking its head. It poked its head at Har Sinai, and so Chazal referred to the state that we were in at Har Sinai as Adam Harishon Kodem Hachet. Now, Adam Harishon Kodem Hachet means that we were secure in our Avodas Hashem. We were not at risk, and this whole system that we refer to as like a Benoni or a Russia, all of these ideas of how the guf causes the neshama to go astray. So that's a temporary situation. Now you say, well, it's temporary, but it's the only situation that we know. However, Chazal make it their point to let us know that that's why it's contained in the Torah. The reason why the Torah begins from Gan Eden, which is not a state that anybody sees today, is because we are meant to be in that condition. And that's what we will once again be in. We will be in that condition. With Tchias HaMesim, we will be restored to a situation where we have the neshama is brilliant enough to contain the guf and keep it on track. And so, to some extent, if you would imagine, the history of the world is trying to reunite or realign our neshama with its source. And not everybody knows how amazing their neshama is. And so they don't necessarily know how much the neshama suffers when we don't give it a chance to reconnect with its source, and how its source is so amazing, I guess would be a good word to use it. Its source is all of the good midos that we could ever imagine. And we mentioned the idea of a foster parent looking forward to the reunification of this child with his natural parents, so that he's always mentioning when he notices the qualities of the child, and he says, that's just the way your father would do it. And all of those are meant to align the child with his natural parents, because in the nature of being a child, he would start thinking that his foster parent is really the one who, since he's the one who's taking care of him and feeding him and clothing him, so he would forget that he has natural parents that he's going to meet one day. And so the foster parents, they're always reminding him about his natural parents by pointing out things that he does that are echoes of his real parents. So that if we can get to know, or to the extent that we can get to know our neshama as having wonderful midos, and to almost share the pain of the neshama when we don't act in accordance with, or we don't give expression to the good midos that the neshama represents, is really entering a state of reality. It's getting to know the neshama more intimately, and it's getting to know its source more intimately. Now, there's no two people that are going to get to know those two exactly the same way. There will be people that are more inclined to understanding the beauty and the magnificence of their neshama and of its source, and there are those who will understand it less. The idea is that if a person is thinking about it and he's aiming in the direction of trying to get to know those two parties better, he will come to more truth. And any time a person can describe a situation more truthfully than he might have thought of that situation before, there's going to be a spiritual elevation. That's why when somebody understands a svara in their learning and it clicks and they understand the source that they're studying more better than they understood it before, more deeply, more profoundly than they understood it before, that will inherently give a spiritually elevated feeling. Because anytime you get to know something closer to its reality, less distorted by fantasy, less distorted by nonsense, when you cut through and you understand something more clearly, you feel an elevated spiritual experience. And so the first part of Rosh Hashanah is just about the meeting itself, of trying to get a more honest, a more accurate experience when you are interacting with Hashem. So this meeting is happening, and the idea is for the meeting to be a little more real than it would have been had we not had Elul to prepare for it. So that's the first part of the experience of when we have this meeting on Rosh Hashanah. But that's really just one part of it. The other part is recognizing that we are part of an unfolding story. It's a story, wherever you want to trace its origins, back to creation, back to Avram, back to Matan Torah, however you want to trace the story. It's an unfolding story of the kingship of Hashem. It is unfolding from the great kingship we witnessed when we left Mitzrayim to the great kingship that we're going to witness when Hashem redeems Klal Yisrael, and with it the world will come to its proper order. That we are part of that process. And that's why there's a concept called Zichronos. Zichronos doesn't just mean that Hashem has a great memory. Because as anyone who has ever had to listen to somebody tell a story about something that happened to them in their lives and be bored to tears listening to that story, because the story doesn't have a therefore. The story doesn't lead to what is next. The story ends with being some sort of historical account of something that happened in the past. And it begs the question, who cares? But if you tell me that you are part of an unfolding story that has a past, a present, and a future, and all of that is part of the expression of Hashem's sovereignty, that he's been running this story from the beginning of time until the end of time. He has been orchestrating this story to bring out his kingship. Then you understand that Zichronos does not just mean that he remembers everything. Zichronos means it's part of an unfolding story. And what connects those parts? Well, there was the call of the shofar at Har Sinai. There's a call of the shofar that's going on in Shul, where you will daven this year right now. And there's a call of the shofar that is going to usher the sovereignty of Hashem, the announcement of Hashem's unity in the world, where everybody in the world will see that they have been part of an unfolding plan of Hashem from the beginning of time till the end of time. When we encounter that as part of Hashem's mastery and sovereignty in the world, that's not just being aware of the meeting between us and Hashem, which is wonderful, which is important. But it's another part of the experience, which is recognizing that we are not just isolated, lived, died, got his reward, got his punishment, end of story. We are part of an unfolding story that began with the call of the shofar. It is present in the call of the shofar, and it will lead to the call of the shofar. And if you want to know how close we are, just notice the fact that Chazal say that the blowing of the shofar actually throws the Sultan off. Well, why would it throw him off? And the answer is he knows better than we do just how much we are contributing to this unfolding story by being able to remain loyal to Hashem and his Torah with all of the nonsense that is going on in the world that seems almost overwhelming and endless. But our loyalty to the Torah is a dramatic contribution to this unfolding story that began at Har Sinai and will culminate with the call of the shofar of the Mashiach. It is not simply that we live our atomized little life. We are contributing to an unfolding story, and we're davening for that unfolding story. We're davening to see to behold the Malchus of Hashem expressed. And so there's the meeting part where we try to get real with who it is that we're meeting with and who we come to the story with. How it is that we bring what we bring to the meeting, what Hashem brings to the meeting. We try to get a little bit more clarity, and that is an elevating experience of Rosh Hashanah, and the experience of being part of a story that's unfolding, a story that began, that has a middle, and will have an end, a story that Hashem will orchestrate to its conclusion. And we have an opportunity to request that. We have an opportunity to plead with Hashem, to ask Hashem to manifest his glorious kingship so that everyone in the world will recognize that this story was not about the more powerful and the wealthy and the this and the that. The story was all about Klal Yisrael and its relationship to Hashem and to the Torah. So when you're going into the meeting, take with you these two parts, whichever one happens to speak to you more, or if they both can contribute to your Rosh Hashanah. Then you're going in to Rosh Hashanah with greater clarity and with an understanding of the story that's unfolding. And when we're asking Hashem to allow this story to unfold to its proper conclusion, we must remember that everyone in the world will know that Hashem is king to the extent that they were aware and thought about the fact that Hashem is king before that shofar call. Before that great shofar call where everybody will recognize, where everybody will recognize, everyone in creation will recognize the unfolding story. But the ones who have been thinking about it, who have been using one Rosh Hashanah after the next to stop and think about and yearn for the expression of Hashem's sovereignty in the world, are not going to be in the same place with the people who just woke up when the call of the shofar of Mashiach comes. They're not going to be in the same place. And so we contribute to what we will benefit from, to what we will gain from with the call of the Mashiach by our thinking about it, thinking about the source of our neshama, thinking about and yearning for the expression of his malchus, and listening to the shofar as part of an ongoing story that began, that has a middle, and Be'ezer Hashem b'mhira v'yameinu will conclude b'bias hagoel. Tiva v'chasima tova.